Y'all, the OTA is here, and no hyperbole, no bullshit. They killed Surtur. The Surtur decks that were so good, that were absolutely all over the place. Surtur will now max out at a 3/9, and they also changed two other cards in that deck. They haven't made a deck this level of worse. They haven't killed a deck to this extent since Thanos. It's been months, I think almost a year at this point, since they changed to Thanos, where they like Thanos' stones were completely reworked and he started in your hand and everything sort of fell apart for him. That was the dominant deck. For a while now, Surtur Skaar has been the dominant deck. They're both nerfed, and so is so much more. We're going to talk you through all of this, all of the changes. Surtur is going to, again, in most games, max out at a 3/9, not making your Skaar cheaper. We're going to talk about so much, but first, we're going to talk about the change I'm most excited about. I was never that big, like, I was never that worried about Surtur decks. They're not, like, they're great, right? Don't get me wrong, they're great. But at the top of Infinite, you can run things that like counter it well enough that you're fine. Um, I'm a bounce lover. And they finally changed Joaquin Torres. I mean, finally, 3 weeks after his release. And now I think this is a card everyone's going to want to own. Straight up, I think this is a card everyone's going to want to own. They made him from a 3/4 to a 2/2. That is such a ridiculously huge change. He is now so good on curve. He now fits into so many more decks. He was a D level card. He was almost unplayable. I think he's now an A. I think this absolutely takes this card that was not very good and pushes it to the top of the meta. Now, the Victoria hand decks absolutely love this. You now have this ridiculously cool curve where you can go Joaquim Torres on 2, Hood and who frickin' cares on 3, Hood and Victoria hand if it makes you happy on 3, right? On turn 4, you can just immediately drop Misery and you have 4 demons at 8 power each. That's 32 power in 1 drops that you can drop at the end of the game. I think this is amazing. I think this card is going to be absolutely incredible and meta shaking. I think Victoria handless are going to come back with a force, but that's not even what I'm excited about. What I'm excited about is bounce. I think this is going to replace Bishop in our standard bounce list because I could really, really, very rarely play this on 3 because I needed to bounce my ones. And like bouncing a 3 was really, really like awkward cost wise. And then I wasn't sure like how else I could do that. And like it often contradicted. I couldn't play it on turn 4 with my Black Swan, and Black Swan was just more important, and none of this really worked together. As a 2/2, I don't have that problem. If I need to bounce it, great. Who cares? I'll just replay a 2 drop. If I need to play it with Black Swan on 4, that's great. If I want to play it on Curve on 2, that's great. It's now also gets an extra power from Agent Venom. All around, this is going to be incredible. I think Bounce is back. I think this is the list that we're going to be playing for Bounce, and I could not be more excited. So, a real simple way to play this, right? Like, let's say I don't play anything on turn 1. On turn 2, I drop Joaquin Torres or Agent Venom, or Black Swan, whatever. On turn 3, I can play some 1 drops on Torres. Cool, right? Or I can drop that Agent Venom that I didn't drop. I can do whatever. I can play Torres like I would have before. Turn 4, now I can do Swan, some combination of Swan, Agent Venom, and Torres. If I have Torres down, I can now play 1 drops in Swan. I can then bounce them and Torres on 5, because who frickin' cares? And on 6, I can play Sage, Hit Monkey, and everything else, and just go the frick off. This is going to be huge. I'm so excited for this list. Spoiler, I will be playing the crap out of this. Tonight on stream, we're recording the podcast over on Twitch. Guess what else we're doing? We're going to have to play some frickin' bounce. Before we get to the Surtur changes, please hit that sub button. I'm going to go real fast. We bring you more decks than anyone. We cover Marvel Snap more thoroughly than anyone. This is our going to be a week where we do at least 9 videos. We might actually hit 10. So if you want the best videos and the best decks, sub here. Bottom right corner, that YouTube button is a sub. We're trying for 25,000 subs, and we need your support to get there. We're also giving away a Sam Wilson. We'll tell you more about how to win that later in this video, but for now, sub and like, and we'll tell you what comment to leave in order to try and win Sam Wilson. Boom, Surtur. Stays at 3/5. His stats didn't change. How bad could it be? Well, he's not the twice per game limit. Okay. After you play a card with 10 or more power, this gains +2 power. Excuse me. Yeah. That means you play Surtur on 3, he's a 3/5. You play Cull on 4. Now he's a 3/7. You play I don't know, Crossbones on 5. There's a reason I'm not saying Aero, y'all. You play Crossbones on 5. He's a 3/9. Your Skaar's not cheaper. The deck is broken. The end. The best card, the best deck, it is broken. This is a real nerf. He was S tier, and even if he had fallen down to A with the most recent nerf, he's now down to at best a B, and I honestly think he's a C. I think he's just dead. I don't think he's a card that we want to play anymore. They took Surtur last October's season pass card. If you bought him in October, you had 4 months for him to be meta, because now he's gone. This is a serious murdering of this card. And that's not all they did to this deck. This is the best thing I can come up with to do with Surtur right now. I was looking for Surtur lists. This list can probably get him to a 3/11 because or maybe a little more, because you can do double She-Hulk Infinite type things, or you can do Shuri into like a Titania. You can run a Martyr there or whatever else. You can do a Shuri into Titania, which is going to give it the extra power, and then you can do other shenanigans that way. I don't know. I don't think this deck is good. I think Surtur is gone. I don't know what else to say. I genuinely believe that this card is just dead now. Aero is a 5/9. So you couldn't even curve it if you wanted to. You can't, there's so few 5/10s in Marvel Snap. And Aero is now a 5/9. The Aero Scream Surtur deck is now gone. Because you could have played that, right? That deck didn't run Skaar anyway. You only really lost one power in that exact shell. Right? Because at the end of the day, Aero is still 10. You're not really playing Skaar, so you're still going to end up with the same basic power. You would lose 2 power, on Surtur on that list. But now you can't play Aero because you're not going to get that power. That doesn't trigger Surtur. The cards no longer work together. So, okay, that deck is gone. If Skaar returns, if there's a Skaar deck, and we're going to talk about Skaar again momentarily, if there's a Skaar deck, Aero's not in that either. We'll talk about that in the next deck. I do still think this card is fine, though. This card is just separated from both Skaar and from Surtur. Scream decks are probably the best decks in the game still. Period. Bar none. Not exaggerating. I'm not talking about anything else. I think Scream decks are still probably the best decks in the game, and they'll still run Aero. And I still think this is a B-level card, but it's now a much narrower B-level card. It's a B-level card in one deck instead of 3 decks. That's a big, big change, right? Aero is great, but 2 decks no longer work. I know Browder somewhere is throwing things because he had been playing the crap out of that Scream Aero deck all season, and he's top 5 on the Infinite leaderboard. But yeah, I don't know. List is gone. But this list is still fine. Aero lost 1 power. That's the only change to this list. This is one of the best win decks in the game. It's one of the top win rate decks in the game, and every single bit of it still works just fine. Aero's just 1 less power. You lose a couple more games because Aero's 1 less power. You also win a game or 2 extra because Aero's not going to get chunked. I don't know. Ultimately, this is totally fine. This list doesn't even change. Enjoy. Skaar goes from a 6/10 to a 7/12. What? So not only does it not work with Surtur or Aero. Let's say you play Zabu and you get that 3/10 out, right? That's now a 5/12. Then you play 1 on 4. That's a 3/12. And you play 1 on 5. And that's harder to do now because there's no such thing as Aero, right? That's now a 1/12. So you cannot play this with a million. Well, you can still probably play with enough other things, right? But it is significantly weaker. This is genuinely going to hit it. However, I still think it's going to be really good when Starbrand comes out. We'll talk about Starbrand in the next slide. I'll show you exactly what he does. He was S tier, and now he's going to be C tier for a few weeks. I think he's going to go back to being an A tier card. Most games until Starbrand comes out, you're not gonna get the Zabu thing, right? More often than not. Although you could try Psylocke, I guess also. It's still not gonna happen. Ask a negative player how often that happens. You're gonna go 4/10, 5/10, or 4/10, 4/10, and then you have a 3/12 Skaar. That's fine, but we need an extra option to get that to the 1-drop. You can still play it with Juggernaut, you can still play it with Cosmo, right? But now that's the majority that's your whole turn. That's 6 energy. We need something else. We just need something else in order to make it work, and so you're going to need Starbrand. Starbrand is a 310, native 310, but he also gives +3 to each other location. So that's really good, right? Like that +3 at each other location is really good. It makes it harder to win prio with the list at the very least, and that seems very important in a list where you're running Juggernaut, Cosmo, and Armor. Those cards without prio are significantly worse. So this list is worse, but it's still kind of great, right? Like I'm not making that up. This is still a great list. Starbrand just goes in it over Surtur, and that's better with Ares at the very least. It's worse overall. You've lost power, right? Except you're getting 2 of that power back with Skaar, so at least there's that. And then we need a 5/10, and there's only one other real 5/10. Like we're not going to run. I'm gonna guess we could try a Sauron version, but then we got to cut armor, Captain America, Cosmo, and now it becomes hard to run Gull. So how about we just run Black Panther? It's not as good as Aero. It's not nearly as good as Aero. And it doesn't work in a Cosmo lane, but it works almost everywhere else. And it's got occasional more upside with like strength buffs and stuff. So like I think Black Panther fundamentally replaces it. I think this list is probably still going to be a meta list if it's not as strong because Starbrand is just not as pure upside as Surtur was. Either way, at least until Starbrand comes out, this deck is gone. Once Starbrand comes out, we'll have to see. I think this is still going to be really good, but I think it's going to be way worse. Let's find out together in about 3 weeks. But for the time being, enjoy not seeing the Skaar list at all because they straight up murdered it. They took this archetype and removed it from the game. But that's not all they did. Before we go forward, I'm going to ask you to make sure to check out our Twitch at twitch.tv/PulseGlazer, where I will be live once again at 8:30 p.m. Eastern tonight for the recording of the Snap Judgments podcast. They finally reverted Werewolf back to where he started. He was a 3/3 when he came out, and he was the best card in the game. That was well over a year ago, and the game has power crept him away. So he was like a C, D tier card, and this may make him a B tier card. The real benefit here is it was really, really hard to play him and not just have him immediately get Red Guardian. Now you don't have to worry nearly as much about that. 3/3s are much safer from Red Guardian than 3/2s are. We should all know that largely because we've all played Luke Cage when he was a 3/3 versus a 3/2, and he's much more vulnerable to Red Guardian. The other real benefit of him being a 3/3 is that now he's at least semi-reasonable to play into an Iron Patriot. A 3/2 is really bad on an Iron Patriot. Again, check with Luke Cage. A 3/3 at least has something to speak for it. The problem for this card, however, is that Scream exists. Scream is probably the best card, probably the best deck, and thus Werewolf cannot be played. Because every time it moves, even if it's a 3/3, then it's just going to end up giving Scream 2 power. That seems bad, right? Werewolf doesn't actually grow and Scream just gets bigger. That seems like you probably lose that game. Yes, you can run Luke in your Werewolf game deck, but now you're running 2/3s. I think there's a world where Werewolf is a 2/0 and it actually starts to be a great card again, but this isn't that world. I understand and respect what they're trying to do in making him a 3/3, but I don't think it's going to work, at least unless they nerf Scream, and they did not in this OTA at the very least. This was the last really good Scream Werewolf list. This is from our friend Burrs. It is very, very hard to play this list. If you have any interest in playing Werewolf by Night, this is about where you want to look, but you better not be seeing Scream, because again, Scream just sort of eats this alive. Our season pass question. I told you I'd give you a chance to win later this video. All you have to do is leave your review of the OTA in the comments. If you are interested in winning the Sam Wilson season pass, that enters you in the giveaway. A comment on any other video this week will also help you enter to win. If you're looking to win Agamotto, make sure you check next week when we're going to give away 5 of that card. Annihilus goes from a 5/6 to a 5/7. He's not bad right now. He's just a little bit underrated. The combo of Spider-Man, classic Spider-Man Peter Parker, into Viper will help a Void go over. And yes, that doesn't mean you're not playing Annihilus that game, right? But like, so what? I think that's like still fine. Your opponent's not always going to be able to fill there when they can't. Your Annihilus and Sentry are still going to be insanely strong. And I think that like little 4-ish card package is probably great. I can see this change of giving him an extra power, pulling him up to an A, but for now I still think I'm going to leave him as a B tier card, a low B tier card, in fact. I could see that changing over time. I also think he really benefits from the Joaquin Torres change because Viper costs 3. But like also I want to, let's say I'm playing this list, for example, and I want to throw a crap ton of rocks in a deck, right? I can now play Hood, Korg, I can go, excuse me. I can go Hood on Torres, right? And Korg on Torres and Grandmaster them away. Or Grandmaster one of them away. Now I have a million demons and I can Annihilus over that Hood. That kind of thing is really nice here. That extra power is really nice here. I can still go I can now go Torres into Hood on 3 into Sentry into Annihilus. And that's again, all of these changes seem really, really strong. I think this list is real. Bluntly. I think between the Torres change and Annihilus change, I think this is real. There was a time when Annihilus Werewolf was like the best thing to do. I don't think we're back at that. I don't think we're ever going to be back at that as long as Scream exists. But I do think that we might be close with a Torres build. Next up, they finally buffed Evolutionary back to how he was data mined originally as a 4/7. Um, I guess you'll play his physical body more often now if you play his decks. His decks have fundamentally become 1 to 2 cards at most of Evolutionary. There's like the Hulk stuff, which is fine but not really good. But like most of what he's run for is if you're running a Toxic deck, you can run Abomination, and occasionally you'll throw like a Misty or a Cyclops in there. So you don't really want to play him still, but like once in a while you're gonna have no choice and you'll feel a little better for it. This doesn't change anything. The card itself is like an F tier card, right? Like a D tier card at best, because 4/7's I guess decent stats. But like Evolutionary is still a solid B. It's still good and has good lists. Um I've long argued that when Shang-Chi used to kill 9 power or more way back when versus the 10 power currently kills. And the entire game is balanced around that difference between 9 or 10. When Shang went to 10, basically almost everything under 10 power needed to get an extra power to really fit the curve of the game after that change. We've watched long a bunch of different cards gain that extra power. It's High Evolutionary's turn. Great. This is one of the best lists in the game. This is from our friend Cougar. It's had the highest win rate for quite a while. It runs Cassandra over Dimeback. The reason that we're looking at Den's version is because Den was like, ooh, what if we just put Dimeback over Cassandra? Great, cooked. This list is awesome. It's one of the best lists in the game. High Evolutionary now has 1 more power in it. Huzzah. This is a weird change. White Queen goes from a 4/6 to a 3/4. This is apparently for Isan? I don't know. I don't think I want to play Isan with this, where I can play Isan and then get their highest cost card for free. Okay. Isan's a 6/9 that puts a card that did start in your deck into play at his location. Sure. I still think this is probably an F card. Maybe it goes up to a D. I really, really hope I'm wrong, but I don't really see much I really give a crap about with this. 3/4 is just bad stats anyway. So like I don't really want to run a 3/4. I don't want to run a 4/6 that's like doesn't do anything great. And I don't want a 3/4 that doesn't do anything great. No, I appreciate them looking at this card because I love White Queen the character, but eh. I threw it in an Isan deck. Great. It's a Victoria hand, Isan deck. Could be decent with Victoria hand, right? Like you play Victoria hand, then you play White Queen, you get an extra card that's can have that extra power. Helps the curve a little bit for this kind of list. Is this good? No, I don't actually think so. But hey, again, we got a thing to do. Look, a thing to do. Hooray. This is I if this is good, I will be very, very surprised. We'll find out in like 4 days. Next up, we got a real big change. Like, no joke, a real big change. Lizard goes from a 2/5 to a 2/6, which means when he's turned off, he's still a 2/2, which is perfectly fine. But as a 2/6, he's just big stats. I think this is, again, one of the leftover Shang changes that we just talked about a couple slides ago. But I think this is now like a semi-auto include if you're running Enchantress or you're running Luke in a non-toxic deck. Or obviously the Sorin decks. That's what we're going to look at. We're going to look at the Sorin deck. This is a real buff. 2/6 is a lot of stats. Have you been playing Sanctum? If you have, you recognize that the 2/6 that Star-Lord becomes is a lot. Lizard does that now. A lot of stats is good, y'all. This is like a real card. I don't know. This is like one of the 2 or 3 biggest buffs in this patch. Like I think the biggest buff is Joaquin, and I think this is probably the second biggest buff. The nerfs obviously are bigger, right? Like they changed the whole game. But like I think this is going to be legit, and it's going to make a lot of decks. In particular, the Dinosauron. This is a old Derek build that Ekmata used to finish in the top 5 of last season. I don't know. You add an extra power to that lizard. Now you can drop it on the Iron Patriot with Ebony Maw and just say, I dropped a 13 power on my Iron Patriot. It's pretty good. I can play Sauron, and then I've just got a 2/6 that I can play whenever later in the game. Or if Malekith gets it after I Sauron, that seems amazing. I don't know, friends. I think this is going to be a really, really good card. And like, not just this, I can run in a Serra deck that I'm running Enchantress in just fine if I want Prio. I think Lizard's great. I think it's an A tier card. I'm like, I want to say it's B. I think it's an A tier card. I think we're going to be seeing a lot of Lizard. It might take a little bit, right? Because it'll be a little buried, but I think we're going to see a lot of Lizard sometime soon. That's it. That's the OTA. Oh, sorry. Actually, before we go forward, there's one more thing. Two cards were changed where Eliath and something else where it used to be that they hit cards. Oh, Gwenpool. Eliath and Gwenpool, it used to be they hit cards in hand or unrevealed. Now they hit characters because apparently we're getting a new card type that's not just characters. So cool. We'll worry about that when it comes out. We can speculate about that. I'll speculate about that some on the podcast tonight. But like for the time being, I'm pretty sure Akamoto spells will be something like that where you don't want them to get like they won't have power, so they can't get hit by Gwenpool, and they won't be able to get Eliath. So, like, if you do suck up the energy for something that's going to disappear, it doesn't just like not do anything. So that seems like it's reasonably cool. I don't know. That's all I got. Uh, that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. We're gonna say thanks to a bunch of patrons if you want to check out and get thanked. Also, patreon.com/snapjudgments. Thank you to our patron of the month, Ocularis, and we're going to go relatively quickly because it is absurdly late. Thank you to Abigail Gleason, Manager Burna, Irregardless, LAB, Inc., Iron Frostman, Hota Navarrete, Thinking Poker, Primed Ryan, Ryanberg, Ryan Wood, Characters League, Corey, Kazushi, Archangel 3K, Black Dahlia, Frost, The Goat Seeker, Hollowed, Nightmare, Only Fox, Sans, Fartnerk, Dirty Casual, Mr. Kerfuffle, Cables, Ginger Prime, Philip Rakovich, Haplo, Kenny Logs of the Dangers of the Biz, Black Jeep is 23, XRC, Skippy D, Jessica Gamble, Slush Death, King of Bros, Grey Kazoo, Werewolf, Kizuto, Ludicrous, Clam, Colonel Foreman, Rob Silverman, M. Allen, David G. Winfield, Stephen, Brad Coffin, Tristan H. Martin, Jason B., Mr. Craig Starry, B, Matt V, Ren Wrench, Corbin, Chunk U, Jim McHugh, You Stout, 8 Stage, One Big Man for Reals, Cactus Jack, BG, Quid Virgil, Snap Decision Joe, Miles Not Supreme, Green Goblin, Unibot, Fun Physics, Fuzzy Dog, The Fuzzy Spectrumix, Woo, Absolute Shannon, Matt H, DJ Mike Hedgings, Snowflex, Nick the Greek Geek, Zodrex, The King Canada, Deadman Falcon, Father Josie, Two Ties, Lotus, Pirate King Tucker, and of course, KT, and of course, that's it. I'll see you tonight. Thanks for hanging out with me. I really, really appreciate all of you and all your love and support. Make sure you hit the sub if you haven't yet, left and right for more great videos, including, don't forget to check out this morning's video. Really, really, really cool Dracula deck. You won't want to miss it. Peace.